Hello guys, this is Terenas Movies and welcome to the 4th episode of the big Q&A. I'm sorry for not really doing it as often as I said I would. I plan to do this about once a month, but I haven't done it in about 2 months. But a big part of it was because of these big things that have been happening with the lore, you know, chronicles and all that. That's just like a huge amount of lore. So I plan to cover some things about the channel, about the chronicle book, upcoming books, and also obviously the big lore part. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into the questions and the topics. So something I want to mention is, I think I mentioned this before, but I don't really answer too many comments on these Q&As, so don't get offended if I don't answer a comment. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I try to answer as many comments as I can, because I think that if you take your own time to comment on my video, I think I should respond back. But sometimes I don't really respond, but in most cases I try to respond as much as I can. I mean, when your channel grows, you just get a lot more comments than you used to, or that I used to, so I'll try to do my best. But on these big Q&As, I don't really answer them because I try to put these questions in here and just talk about different topics, but I'll answer some comments. So something I want to talk about apart from this thing, I don't know why I just wasted time on that, is that there is so much new lore. You know, we have the Chronicle book, the Illidan novel, the new Durotan, the movie prequel that's gonna come out in like, I believe, a week or maybe even 4 or 5 days from now. So at this point, I mean, we're getting like one book a month. In March we had Chronicle, yeah, it was in April, and now in May. I think Christy Golden said there's gonna be like a book about like the Durotan thing is gonna be the prequel to the movie, but I think she said it will be like a book about like the story of the actual movie. So there's just a lot of different lore. It's kind of overwhelming because we had war crimes in like 2014 and nothing really significant since then, so now we're getting like these 3 books. I mean, you guys are probably not overwhelmed, but it's me that I'm making these videos, you know, like the Chronicle video was, oh my god, it was just like, I spent so much time making those 3 videos, it's insane. Like usually, if you've been following my channel, like you notice that I usually make videos about 7 to 8 minutes long, but for the Chronicles video, I did like 3 videos, each being like between 10 and 15 minutes, which is almost 45 minutes of video. And the thing is, I tried to summarize as much as possible, but the problem with the Chronicles is that the book itself is a summary. I mean, it's literally the summary of the entire Warcraft lore. It doesn't cover the Draenor part, but most of Azeroth's lore, and literally like 90% of things mentioned in the book is very, very important. While, for example, for the Illidan novel that I made, I mean, that was like 12 minutes, just one video. I mean, in that book, like, only 10% of the book was like the core, like the synopsis of the story, and all of the other stuff was kind of filler and explaining everything. But, you know, it's a lot easier to summarize, but it's kind of hard to summarize a book that is already a summary. But it is a great thing because there is just so many topics I'm gonna cover. Like, I made the summary, then I did the Black Empire, now I started doing the origin of the races. I plan to, like, some people are asking me to do other like races that are not mentioned in the Chronicle, like the Orcs, for example. I might do that. I might actually expand this series and do like a thing about the other races, like the Orcs, the other races that weren't covered, like the Undead and all that. I mean, a lot of people know already about the Undead, but I do plan to do the Dwarves and the Gnomes. That's probably gonna be one of the next 2 or 3 videos, maybe even the video after this one. But yeah, apart from that, I plan to cover a few more topics, like little short stories that were explained in the book, like the thing with the Highborn that had to enslave that demon lord and kind of drain the power in order to power themselves. So I'm gonna do a few more stories like the Crystal Song Forest I did. So this Chronicle book was perfect for my channel because this gives me like 15 different video ideas that I can cover, and all of this stuff is really interesting for me to make because this is kind of new lore. Like, for example, some videos, like some people asked me to do the origin of the Blood Elves. I don't know, I feel like I've talked about this like so many times in the RP guides, in the different Q&As and all different videos I did. I feel like almost everyone knows that, although I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that don't know the origin of the High Elves. I mean, I probably could do it for them, but it is kind of boring for me to like make a story about a story I've read like 50 times over and over again. So to not ramble any further, I'm gonna cover a lot of the Chronicle videos in the future and a lot of the different topics, and probably gonna continue the origin of the races even above the Chronicle stuff. Alright, so other than that, another thing that has been happening with the channel and that I'm planning to do is to start streaming again. I've been doing this streaming thing on and off all the times for the past 2 years. This is a really bad thing about streaming. Like, streaming is all about consistency, so it is not really a good thing to stream like a bit and then not stream like half a year and then stream for a month and not stream for a year. So I plan to stream again soon. The thing is though, I'll try to do it like once a week. It's not that much if I stream just like 2 or 3 hours once a week. But the thing is, like, there's just like these questions. I don't know if I want to go for Twitch or YouTube gaming. There's two sides to that. Like, YouTube gaming, I have my audience on YouTube, so all of you guys that are watching me, like, that watch my streams, like 99.99% of people that watch my streams just come from YouTube. But the thing is, with Twitch, it's always good, like, I can grow another channel, so it's good to have like 2 channels, so if something happens with the YouTube channel, I can just stream on Twitch or do something else. I don't really plan to be a streamer or anything. I wouldn't really want to do that, but still, it's good to not put like all of your eggs in one basket, especially with YouTube. Like, something can always happen with that. Another thing is, I've talked about this before, I plan to open a history channel sometime next year. A big issue with that is that that's gonna take so much time. Like, to do videos, like I do like a video about every 4 to 5 days on this channel, and that takes like a lot of time. And if I did like a video for the history channel, I would also have to do like 1 or 2 a week, so I need to find some way to either hire some help or do something in the future if my channel grows so that I can expand in that, because otherwise, like, if I do it like with this workflow, I'm just gonna be working like 24/7, which is not gonna be a good thing. And also, that is why I don't want to commit to streaming, because then I wouldn't be able to stream at the same time. But that is all the questions for the future. There's just like a lot of stuff I still need to figure out on how I want to do these history videos and all that. I might not even do it, depending, like, if this channel like really grows at some point, I might delay that or maybe even hire more help to like develop most of those videos, but I still really don't have any questions for that. So apart from that, let's see, we have a question by Broxa, and he or she asks, do you still roleplay? Alright, so this is a question I've been getting for quite a bit, and not really just directly the question. Like, a lot of people ask me a lot of roleplay stuff, because even if you haven't watched these guides, you know I have like a lot of guides on roleplaying. The thing is though, for about 2 to 3 years I've roleplayed like pretty actively on multiple characters, mainly the Horde but also the Alliance. But for the past 2 years I kinda stopped because I've been doing YouTube more seriously, and the main reason why I don't really roleplay anymore is just the lack of time, as I spend like so much time making these videos. A lot of people don't really see this, all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, but a lot of these videos take a lot of time. Like, on average it is about 20 to 30 hours per video, which might seem like I'm exaggerating it, but it usually takes a lot more because I like procrastinate. But 20 to 30 hours like effective working to do one video, which is kind of a lot because I do like a video every 4 to 5 days, so it's almost twice a week. On top of that, it's also like answering comments, tweets, Facebook messages, thumbnails, and all the minor stuff that adds up. So I'm spending a lot of time on the channel, which makes my gaming time, like the actual time when I could just like play games and not do anything, pretty limited. And the problem with that is, if you guys have ever roleplayed, you know that like roleplaying is very time consuming. You can obviously roleplay for like 30 minutes, but if you're roleplaying seriously in like a guild, you need to like commit to events, and usually big guilds have like events every 2 to 3 days, and they take like a couple hours, and there's just like a lot of time commitment that I just can't commit to anything. And also, like, if you did like roleplay with like 20-30 people, there's always like people with attitudes and arguments and all this stuff. Like, I just don't really have the patience or the time to just do it anymore. However, that doesn't mean that I won't roleplay or that I will stop the roleplay videos like forever. I might do more roleplay videos. I definitely plan to do the Demon Hunter guide and possible like guides for sub races, and I might even roleplay again at some point in the future, but I don't know. At this point, I just think it will depend a lot on the free time, because I'm trying to like juggle streaming and doing YouTube and possibly opening a second channel, so there's just like a lot of commitments that I just don't have the time for roleplay. Alright, so let's not waste any more time. Like, if you've been watching these Q&As, you know you can just skip questions. Like, I ramble here all the time, and that's kind of the point of these Q&As, just because I can, like, ramble in these, and they're pretty long. Like, I don't really mind too much about the time, although I do still have to care about the time, because I actually edit these videos. Like, I have to cut out every breath, because it really annoys me when I like listen to videos, and I can hear, like, breathing sounds, so it takes me about 5 to 6 hours to just like cut out all the breaths and also lower those sharp like S sounds. So that takes quite a bit of time to do. That's why I don't want to make these videos like 2 hours long, but if I didn't do that I would just like talk forever, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, so let's not waste any more time, let's get into the actual lore question. Alright, the first question is by Elias, and he asks, where do restoration druids draw their powers from? Alright, so this is a pretty interesting question. If you know the druids, they're very similar to shamans, but instead of using elementals and bargaining with the elementals, the druids actually bargain with the actual nature around them. So when druids heal, they use life force, and the way they get this life force is from the nature itself. However, the bad part of this is that restoring life comes with a price, and life can't just like pop into existence all of a sudden, so it has to be traded. So what the druid does is he asks nature to sacrifice its own life essence in order to transfer that life essence to other people or other trees. This kind of seems like ridiculous from the game perspective, because you know, just people like constantly heal each other. That's just like draining the nature. Seems like you're just abusing nature, but in the lore, like, healing doesn't work like that. That's obvious. Like, combat healing, from what I've read in the books, like, usually they might do a little heal, but usually like healing comes after battles, or even like the resurrections we have seen. Like, they're pretty rare, and just heals and resurrections are actually pretty rare in the lore. They're definitely not the same as they are in the game. So all in all, the way they get their power is just tapping into nature, or just bargaining with nature and getting life essence in order to transfer it. Alright, so the next question is by Peter, and he asks, when did the High Elves / Cinderai abandon their fate in Elune, and why? Alright, so I'm guessing by Cinderai you mean Quelderai? Like, Cinderai is the Blood Elves, but I'm guessing you're talking about High Elves / Blood Elves. So the answer to the question is about 7,000 years ago, when they split from the Night Elves. But the thing is, apart from just splitting from the Night Elves, the Highborn that will later become the High Elves and the Blood Elves weren't really that much into worshipping Elune. I mean, Druidism and Elune are the two core features of the Night Elven society, and after the War of the Ancients they shunned arcane magic, and the Highborn were all about arcane magic. They didn't really care about Druidism or Elune that much. Like, even during the reign of Ashara, as it was said in the Chronicles, Ashara herself secretly didn't like the entire Druidism movement thing, and the nature and Mount Hyjal and even the worship of Elune, and Ashara was more interested in maximizing the potential of arcane power and also creating the world perfect in her own image. So, to answer your question, the High Elves didn't really abandon Elune. They weren't really big followers of Elune in the first place, and they kind of just abandoned all those traditions when they passed over. I mean, probably some individual cases, there was probably some worship of Elune, but it was all abandoned like when they went through. There could be some cases of Highborn that still remember the Elune like 500 years later or passed it on to their children, but since 7,000 years have passed, the entire thing has been forgotten, and the High Elves kind of switched from the moon to the sun. That is why their zones are so different. Okay, so the next question is by Doom Goblin, and he asks, is the Curse of Flesh actually a good thing? I'm not sure, but I think it gave dwarves, gnomes and Vrykul a free will, and also gnomes are much smarter than mecha gnomes. Well, the Curse of Flesh by the new lore was kinda changed a bit, but it was pretty obvious. Like, the Curse of Flesh was created by Yogg-Saron in order to corrupt the Titan Watchers, and he did this through manipulating Loken. And the reason Yogg-Saron did this was to weaken the Titan creations, so weakening them and having flesh creatures is much easier to defeat than having metal and stone creatures. But the thing is, it definitely was not a good thing in the slightest. The Titan creations themselves were not just like these mindless drones. They did serve the Keepers and the Titans, but they all had their own personalities, so they weren't just like these mindless slaves without any brain just doing whatever is told, just like robots. And also, another thing is the mechanomes, even though they're very robotic and I believe they can also be even turned off or like repaired in some way, they were definitely smarter than the gnomes we have, because they built this huge part of Ulduar and even rebuilt Mimiron when he was killed by Loken, so they definitely were not like stupid and the gnomes are more intelligent. So all in all, the Curse of Flesh was definitely not a good thing and it was only good for the old gods. Okay, the next question is by the Sleepy Druid and he asks, what do you think about if we would lose to the Legion in the upcoming expansion and have to flee? Okay, so personally, I don't think that will really happen, and the main reason for that being gameplay. I mean, there is no way we're just going to lose Azeroth, as all the different quests, expansions, and all the content they have created over the years in between would just not be accessible, and you can't really just like phase the entire world, because that would be kind of weird, everyone else being on like a different world, and you just like do like 5-6 expansions on one, and then go to like a different world. Just the phasing, the entire gameplay mechanics and all that would be completely messed up, so I don't really think that will ever happen. However, what could possibly happen is that we lose, and then there is an expansion that kind of continues the invasion, and then we lose quite a bit of ground. Although that would also not really be very probable or likely, because Blizzard, I mean, how are they just gonna market in another expansion like, here you go guys, this is just like Legion expansion number 2, the continuation. There will be a really terrible expansion, and I can already see people just complaining about them like recycling old content, and yeah, that would probably just not happen. I mean, I don't really see how they would pull it off, but I think it would be like more probable than the first thing you said, like losing the entire world. That would kind of wouldn't make sense. However, in the Illidan novel, and if you haven't read the novel, just skip to the next question. I'm gonna kind of put a big spoiler right now for the novel. So I think the next expansion, I really think this will happen, is that after Legion we're going to be invading Argus, or the expansion after Legion. I think we're going to be invading Argus, as that is what Illidan had planned originally, in order to kill Jaden in the Twisting Nether, and thus he would weaken the Legion severely by pretty much destroying the brain and the main commander under Sargeras. So I think it will very much be possible and more probable that we invade the Legion instead of just like us losing and just losing the entire world. I really don't think that will happen. Okay, we have about 3 questions left. The next question is by the Water Elemental, and he asks, why can't shamans summon water elementals? Alright, so this is something I haven't even actually realized until I actually read the question. I mean, I've seen it before, but it didn't really pop into my mind, and it is a pretty good question. I mean, the shamans, they communicate with the elementals, so I don't see why they wouldn't be able to summon the water ones. Like, some people say the water ones are like mindless or uncontrollable, but that's definitely not the case. I mean, we have Neptulon, he was said to be the strongest elemental before Ragnaros, like before the new lore. So yeah, I mean, water elementals can definitely be talked to. I think the main reason why this can't happen in the game is just because of gameplay, because they gave mages this option, so it would kind of be bad to have the same spell for like 2 classes, although I don't really see why they couldn't do it. I mean, both the shamans and the druids and the priests can heal, but they're kind of different, so giving shamans like a different water elemental model or something a bit different about it, I don't see why they couldn't really pull that off. Also, I think another thing is because in Warcraft 3, like the mages could summon the water elementals. That was kind of like their signature, like you saw Jaina and Antonidas and all the various like the mages, like the hero class, they just summoned water elementals. So that was kind of just transferred into WoW. I don't really think they put that much thought like if this would kind of mess up with the shamans and their lore. So in a way, like the mages are almost like the same way like the warlocks are to like fell magic and the demons, mages are kind of to elementals, because unlike shamans who make deals and bargain with the elementals, the mages just like straight out enslave them and just like use them against their will. So to answer your question, I think just mainly gameplay reasons. I don't really see one single like lore reason why the shamans wouldn't be able to summon water elementals. Alright, the next question is by Kumark, or Merk, and he asks, who gave Terenas the second burial? This question has been bothering me for quite some time. Alright, so I'm guessing you're referring to the tomb in Undercity, which used to be the capital of Lordaeron, which is a completely legit question. I mean, in Warcraft 3, if you guys have played it, and I'm guessing most of you have, we had the ashes of Terenas that Uther carried and was later taken by Arthas. So if we had the ashes of Terenas, it means that his body was cremated. I mean, they probably just didn't like bury like half of him and the other cremated. That's very unlikely. So the question is, like, if he was cremated, why is there a tomb in Undercity? I don't believe this was explained. If you know if it was explained, just leave it in the comments. But in my opinion, either the tomb was just like a memorial site for it. But since when you look at the tomb, it says, here lies King Terenas, which kinda implies that he was buried here. I mean, if it was just like a memorial, it would probably be just like a statue or something else. So what could have possibly happened is that he was initially buried when he was murdered by Arthas, and then they built a tomb, and then they saw that the Scourge was just like killing everyone and raising the undead, so they just decided to dig him up and just burn him in order to not have the undead king raised. I mean, just have like undead king Terenas. It would be like a huge blow to the humans. But I don't really believe this was ever explained, so I'm guessing this would be the case. If there is like an official lore explanation, feel free to say so. Also, another thing that kind of got me thinking is, isn't it kind of weird that the tomb of the king is literally next to the throne room, like where he sat and discussed with the other like politicians or whatever it was, like his advisors? I think it's probably just like a gameplay thing. It doesn't make sense like to bury someone like 10 feet next to their throne, like 20 meters next to their throne. But it's in my opinion, it's probably just a gameplay thing, so that people, when they go to the elevators to go to Undercity, they run into the tomb and then they think like, oh, this is King Terenas from Warcraft 3. I think that is really the only reason. I don't see why they would bury the king like right next to his throne. Okay, and the last question for this Q&A is by Benjamin, and he asks, if Archimonde is Velen's brother, how could Archimonde then be so big compared to Velen? Alright, so one thing is, like, they call each other brothers, but I don't believe they're actually brothers. I think it's just because of their very close relationship, but they aren't like actually like real brothers. However, the thing is, both Archimonde and Kil'jaeden like definitely have the ability to change their size, as we have seen in so many cases by now since Warcraft 3. Like, if you watch the cinematic, like, Archimonde was almost as big as the entire like Nordrassil. Like, he was more than half of Nordrassil, and Nordrassil is like a huge gigantic tree that you can see like from most of the continent. Meanwhile, like when he encountered Tyrande, he was about the same size, so it's pretty obvious that they have the ability to change their own size. Like, same with Kil'jaeden, like we've seen him in, like, for example, in Warcraft 3, I remember when he talked to Illidan, he was kind of like 2 or 3 times bigger, but then when he found him at the Black Temple, he was like gigantic, like he was really big. So they definitely have this ability, but I don't believe, like, obviously, I mean, Velen and the Draenei don't have that, so it's definitely one of those demonic buffs that they gotten from Sargeras, along with the other, like, various powers. Like, Archimonde and Kil'jaeden are way more powerful than Velen, so just changing size doesn't seem like such a big thing, like, to add, because they have, like, all these other different powers. Alright, and that is all I have for this Q&A. Now, do leave your questions in the comment section below, and you can also send them by Facebook and Twitter. If you send them by Facebook, I'll try to respond to them, although Twitter is probably not the best option because it might get buried, because I do these like once a month or every 2 months, so yeah, I might not remember that question, so it's just best to put it in the YouTube comment section below because I can just pick out the questions. So thanks a lot for taking your time out of your day to watch this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already, and see you next time.